What's up? What's up? What's up? We are live on the Packet Roundtable. Same time, same place every week. Good to be here with you boys. It is July 16th.
Yes, it is. And ETH is pumping. We got our Wednesday pump, and it's been going for almost every single Wednesday now for a few months. Almost.
Because we go on the live stream. That's the
yeah.
Yeah, if we don't live stream, I think crypto will cease to exist.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy
it's up
because
to
all
us.
last year, every single Wednesday, it would just be chaos. And for the first few months, I think for the first like 3 or 4 months of Trump's administration, every single Wednesday, the market would capitulate and it'd be a dump. And now every single Wednesday is, place your longs early morning and enjoy the ride because things are looking good. Things are looking good.
Yeah, I think we got 2 months of up before we go back down.
Yeah, something like that. We're on a daily 9, so it will top out. It could go up here and tap 3,400 though. We'll see. We'll see if it can pull that off before let's see, you got like 7 hours before the daily candle ends. So let's just see how high it can push. We're in this there's this triangle, this ETH triangle that is pretty massive. It goes all the way back to November 2021. And I've been tracking it for years. And obviously it broke to the downside really, really, really badly with the Liberation Day bullshit, which was basically just a fake out. But when you zoom out onto the monthly, you can see that I might just share my screen. You can see that, yes, it did drop out the bottom of the triangle, but then just quickly recovered it. And this is on the monthly chart, mind you. But we have heavy, heavy, heavy resistance at 30, let's just call it 35.50, right there about. Depending if we go one more month, it might be like 35.30. Once we break that area, it's going to be a run up to the all-time high, which is just under $5,000. So ETH, and this is a common pattern between ETH and Bitcoin. When Bitcoin tops out, then people cycle their funds into Ethereum. And
Solana's also on a good pump right now, but
yeah, Sol, XRP. I mean, everything alt is
but
doing
nothing like Ethereum. And Ethereum's great for Packet because Packet's built on Base, which is built on Ethereum. So we like Ethereum pumps. I actually drew a line on Ethereum at 32.73, and it just tapped it and got rejected. So if it can break through that line, that'll be a good one.
Yeah,
because of the way the liquidity pool works, if Ethereum goes up 5%, this packet just automatically goes up 5%, all other things being equal.
Yeah, that's
Let's hope it can go up 100%.
Yeah, here, share my screen right here, Josh. So this is that triangle that I was talking about. This is on the daily, but you can just see this thing is playing out pretty nice. I mean, you can see right here that it it got absolutely ripped a new one. And this is where, you know, we saw Ethereum go down to 1,400, which was like a
that was the tariffs.
generational entry point right there. Anybody who sold at the bottom here thinking you were going to really get some nice entries from Liberation Day got wrecked Trump style. But yeah, we're looking at, what is this? This is coming off the bottom. Let's see. Coming off the bottom here, we're up 138% since April on Ethereum. So that's pretty nice. And you can see where this resistance level is. I mean, there's no question this is a heavy point of resistance right here. So this little area right there is going to be, you know, there will be a rejection there for sure. But yeah, when that breaks, that is going to be the moment of truth, and that's going to be the moment you're going to want to get ready to load up on your Ethereum positions if you haven't already. But also, you know, these triangles, you know, are generally good indicators on your trade. Now, in terms of this particular massive triangle here, you know, it's anybody's guess when it breaks out. This triangle doesn't end until 2027. So, you know, we could play in this range for another year and a half, conceivably. But it's also possible that this thing breaks out, you know, at any time. So it could be somewhere, you know, over the next year that we get a breakout. And
also, we've never had a bull run, if you want to say that we're still in a bull run, that goes longer than 500. I think it's like 550 days from the halving. So the likelihood of this run going past October is slim, unless we're saying that we're doing like smaller cycles now where you're getting, you know, 2 cycles per halving.
I think there's another theory, and I'm a believer in this theory. And so here you can stop sharing this screen. I'm a believer in this theory that the traditional crypto cycles are over, the way that we've known them, which is like these like you know, winter, you know, spring, you know, summer. Like I just don't think that is the way that it's going to play out going forward. And the reason being that it's not just that institutions are participating in this market, but in particular the ETFs, in the way that those are trading. It's just a different type of inflow, like where it's really what's driving the price now is around like inflows into these ETFs, inflows and outflows into the ETFs. And I don't think that those are going to be specifically related to these traditional crypto cycles
Wait, so you think that those ETFs are driving or influencing?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's a really good question. I actually don't know the answer. I haven't ever thought about it. What I was saying was that I think that the reality that they exist now and that they're driving so much capital into the market and and a couple things have happened. So, US has begun, and this is really, you know, a testament to the ETFs happening, you know, what is just under two years ago. So that was like the first step. And then this like crypto or, you know, I would say regulation that's beginning to happen and validation that's happening in the US market in particular, I believe is having like a very dramatic influence in price action. And now if there was, let's say, like a massive recession in America, I think that, you know, you could say that could impact these cycles dramatically, right? You could say that could impact, if there was like a real significant recession and some large scale disruption with regards to like rates, I guess you would say rates going higher in America. That could certainly impact, for a couple years. We could be in a, you could argue, okay, well, that could cause a bear market for a couple years. And conceivably that's true. But if you kind of look at the horizon right now and what's happening, you got Jerome Powell, Fed chair, at the very least, his term is over in May 2026. I think it's safe to say that even if he makes it to the end of his term and Trump doesn't pull out some stops to try and fire him for cause for this construction project at the Fed, even though the Fed isn't run on a budget that's powered by the U.S. Taxpayers, if Trump, is going to, could try and pull some shenanigans. It's not, he's testing every limit. He's like a bad kid, just testing every limit he can, see what he gets away with. If he tries to oust him earlier, it would be disruptive for sure. But eventually he's going to put someone into that seat. At the latest, it will be May 2026. He's going to lower interest rates dramatically. And as a result, you're going to have money pour in. And so, if you're thinking that there's going to be some prolonged bear market, in the next 12 months, it's, it's hard to see that happening because we know interest rates are going to incrementally come down. Even if Jerome Powell stays in power, we're going to have, the inflation data. We'll see what happens with, tariffs, how that impacts the U.S. economy. And eventually interest rates are going to tick down, I would say, over the next year. It's going to happen. And every time they tick down, more money is going to go into crypto. We know that's going to happen. We also know that the strength of the US dollar has dropped over 10% since the beginning of 2025. And what has that done? That's resulted in Bitcoin basically 2xing in that time period. So if anyone's just like sitting on the sidelines waiting for a bear market, I don't know when that bear market's going to happen over the next 24 months. And if it does, if there is a step back that's comparable to what just happened with Liberation Day, then it's going to be short lived because everyone's going to buy the dip, right? So I just don't see it that there's a bear market on the horizon. I think we're going to be looking. Does it mean that the market will never, go down? No, there will be reasons that will happen. But are we going to be in a prolonged bear market where everyone's going to get a new entry at Bitcoin at 60K? I don't think so.
Well, no, I mean that 60K is a lost number. We never go down below. We never go down below the previous high. So that's just one way that we just have never done. Like, who's to say that can't happen? But that's generally speaking, we never go below the previous all-time high. And maybe we tapped it, and maybe we like incrementally below, but not like significantly below.
That would be 75, and we just tapped 75 for the first time in April, right? So it's like, what's the next high, right? So
right. Well, that's the question: is what's the next high, and then in a bear market, where does it come down to? But I'll say two things to what you said. Is number one, there's so many holders prior to the ETF that, let's be honest, Bitcoin, we want to pretend it's decentralized. It's pretty centralized in the hands of, the whales that can go make the market. I mean, we've seen just the ability for this market to get just absolutely beat down, and that's done by a few, not by the many, and obviously it's a ripple effect that affects the many, but the trigger is the few that are able to really go move that market. The other thing I'd say is when FTX crashed, nobody saw that coming. Like, nobody could have been like, hey, I think everyone's going to be over leveraged, and, we're going to have this, daisy chain effect of things just like destroying, and that's going to kill the market for 2 years. Like I didn't see that thing coming, you know, when Tom Brady was doing commercials. That didn't spook me as like, oh shit, this is the end. It should have actually, because once you have the famous saying is, once your Uber driver is giving you financial advice on crypto, then we're close to the end of that cycle. So I don't necessarily know if we, and I don't think that Bitcoin will get beat up as hard as altcoins will. I agree with you that there is a new influx of money flowing into Bitcoin. People now have Bitcoin in their IRAs and their long-term savings accounts for their stock portfolios. So that does change a lot, because but unless you're actively trading inside those portfolios, but a lot of people are just putting stocks in there, letting them appreciate over time, and now crypto is one of those stocks that you can put in there. So yes, I agree that changes the landscape significantly, but at the end of the day, we don't know what the future holds, and for some reason, this shit keeps happening pretty much like clockwork every single cycle, and it's always something. Like even in like 2018, when it crashed because like China said that mining was illegal, and it's like, that's not a big enough thing that's just going to crash the market, but it crashed. It was a a headliner that just like crashed the market. It's just like, there's these things that happen, and you're just like, really, that's what just cratered the entire market. And I think that just is a testament to how non-decentralized this market is, that these small headlines that can be made into big headlines can have such a impactful effect on the markets, which can trigger all these long positions, which just craters the market. And then you have fear and news and headlines and all this stuff, and grandma who just put her retirement into Bitcoin doing a market sell at the bottom. And yeah, that's kind of the ripple effect that happens, and you can't really predict those things.
Right, but that just happened in April. And so the point that I was trying to make is that short, and again, it has to be some sort of black swan. But even with the black swan of Liberation Day, even with us actually tapping the previous range high, right, in April, and now we're in, as of basically May, which was just a couple weeks later, like literally it was like a couple days later, really, because it just was a about face switching course. The price just ripped right back to the upside. I think it only dipped for literally, like, if you look at it, it's just a wick down and turned right around. So we didn't get a prolonged, downswing. And now it just, not only did it drop, but it just ripped back up 2x. We just 2x. So,
I think that's because we're still in the crypto summer.
Some people have been saying we've been in a prolonged bear market. Some people say we haven't even gotten in a bear market yet. Like, some people are like, oh, we've been in a bear market for the last year and a half. Now we have like disagreement within the vast community about what's a bear market and what's a bull market. So you're just saying it's a summer. I've been reading, some people are like, we never left the winter. It's, no one really knows what's going on. And the point,
or that we got the shortest summer of all time,
or it's the shortest summer of all time. Yeah, we thought that the Trump pump between November and January, which was
technically was a bull market. I mean, that was as bullish as you get.
Right. Some people were saying that was a bull market, and it lasted for about 6 weeks max, maybe a month. And so, but from a Bitcoin standpoint, it's just gone vertical. Yeah, we've had a lot of volatility, but if you look at the price of Bitcoin going back to January, looking pretty damn good. Yeah, there was a dip, but it's
only Bitcoin. If you look at all the other altcoins, I mean, Bitcoin's the only asset that was worth investing in long term.
That's absolutely right. And so
everything else is down 50% still.
Well, except for XRP. It's pretty much like the only one that just like held through and ripped from 40 cents, pre 38 to 40 cents pre-Trump, and is pretty much never went back below $1.75, and is now back at $3. And so, my point is that it's just going to be difficult to bring this market to its knees. Will we see, like I say, step backs? Yeah. Do I think that there's going to be a moment where it drops for, 50 to 60% for more than for a prolonged period? I don't know. It's really hard to say. I think we could, see some parabolic action and then, see it come back down to 100 or come back down to 90. But yeah, it's just going to be, it'll be a very little interesting next little swing. I think every time things get euphoric, it's always, like you said, hard to imagine things coming back down. So I think anyone would be naive to think that it won't ever happen. But it's just if you look, that's what I was saying. If you just kind of look at the horizon, it's hard to imagine like a long-term capitulation event in this current climate where you got the U.S. sitting president buying Bitcoin in, heavy measure. And you have, like, generally speaking, a lot of market movements happening where crypto is now being made accessible to people in traditional markets that never really had access to it. Whereas like in the past, the only way you could do it is by setting up a private wallet or using an exchange. And those are, generally speaking, not very good experiences, but the good experiences are like Robinhood, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, where you can like literally buy crypto, and people are buying crypto in those
Sure.
ecosystems. And it's making it a lot easier for people to buy and hold right now. And I saw some number. It's like literally 99% of everyone who's bought crypto in the last 6 months is in profit, right? I mean, those are crazy numbers, So
Sure. Yeah. And look, I think every cycle, the reason why we're even at these numbers is because more people find out about it, more people figure out how to buy it, more people get involved, and more people buy. And that's why these prices keep going up and up and up. Even the last cycle, DeFi came in and it made it easier where you didn't, need to KYC to buy crypto. And so that changed the wallet technology got better, so like each cycle, it does get incrementally better and easier to participate, and that brings more people in and more liquidity in. And so, yeah, I mean, that's just kind of is the nature of the beast. As more people get involved, that we're no stranger to that, since I got involved in 2017, and since Caleb got involved in 1903 when the dinosaurs invented Bitcoin. And oh wow, ETH just hit that line I just said I drew.
Something I think we need to. I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but every week I'm gonna say it. Something that we need to keep in mind all the time is that, as far as I know, the Treasury still hasn't managed to refinance that $7 trillion of debt that they have to refinance this year, and so they got to do something, and that's either weaken the dollar to erase some of their debt,
which they've done.
Yes, they have. And they've also created inflation, which is going to make the Federal Reserve less their friend. So they're kind of in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah.
Or so they have to either, like hard devalue the dollar, which is good for crypto, or they have to cause a bunch of economic chaos to cause people to go rush to U.S. treasuries instead of whatever else they're investing in, which is probably bad for crypto, or do some combination of the two. We don't know which way they're going to go with it, but we have to keep an eye out for that, because I think that's going to be the biggest event of this year is how, what's his name, solves his problem.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right on that. And those are the macro of events that can impact the price action. Like I said, a recession in the U.S. is certainly on the table, and would, definitely erase a lot of these bullish gains. So yeah, you can't be naive to think that the price just always is going to go up.
They're going You're going to want recession in China, or there isn't much left to recede in Europe. They're gonna be gunning for hurting foreign markets because they don't want to hurt the U.S. market right now because that's going to make U.S. Treasury debt look worse.
Right.
But like just going and bombing something so that everybody's like, okay, I'm pulling my money out of that because that just got bombed. That's definitely a risk.
Yeah, no, it's all good notes. I mean, the inflation report June, hasn't really been talking about it. Usually these inflation reports would cause Bitcoin to capitulate. The inflation report is it ticked up in June, went from 2.4 to 2.7. So that's the first time we've the highest level we've seen since February 2025. And yeah, that's a significant shift. I think there was a lot of naivete about the impact of inflation, or at least the party line from the White House on that it wasn't going to affect anything, and that because the effect of inflation hadn't filtered into consumer prices since Liberation Day. They were trying to goad the Fed to lower rates, like, oh, look, see, it hasn't changed anything, just not understanding supply chains, work like 6 to 8 months in arrears. When inflation, or when the tariffs were announced, everyone doubled down and bought supplies and shipped them into the US as quick as possible, received them at their previous price or similar there too. And then are selling those products into the market at the same price that they were. So course, consumer prices hadn't gone up yet, but and I've been saying by the end of Q3 and certainly by the beginning of Q4, everyone who's buying now with the new tariffs in place, once their current product is sold out of the market and they're replacing it with their, now bought, raw supplies, price is just going to go up naturally because you all just had to pay that tariff bill. I've been hearing some of my friends who are getting hit with insane tariff bills. One woman just got hit. She has a baby product that she creates. She says she got 2 months left of her inventory, and she was trying to bring in the next batch of inventory and has a $230,000 tariff bill, which she doesn't have the cash for. So basically her suppliers like, we can't sit, so now she's paying warehousing costs on product that she can't bring into the US. And that's a direct attack on and a tax, I guess you could say, on a US business, complete US business. But she doesn't know what to do because she doesn't have the cash to pay the 230 grand up front to import the product, and she's going to run out of her product in the next 8 weeks. And then she's going to, and she was saying that her initial loan to buy the supplies is leveraged against her house, and it's a well, oiled machine on the business side, but she's gonna have to come up with the 230 grand. Otherwise, she loses her house and loses her business. So that's the type of shit. That's just one kind of small business, but there's probably tens of thousands of businesses that are experiencing that. I know we shipped some product in. It was weird because we shipped it in before Liberation Day and we still got hit with a 10% tax. It was a disgusting number. I think it was like, we shipped in, I want to say it was like, I'm trying to remember. It was like, we got hit with like almost a $4,000 tax, $3,000 or $4,000 tax. It was a disgusting number. Obviously we had manufactured the product outside of the country to save money. And that was like, all the savings just went out the freaking window on that tariff number. It wasn't a big enough number that you don't pay it, but you go, wow, okay, well, there's like 30% of our profit just got taken out in that tariff bill. It wasn't a big number. It wasn't a big margin that we had on the product. And yeah, just, okay, now we don't make money on that product. Cool. You're still paying your salaries, still paying your overhead costs, and you're still going to sell the product. But now when it comes down to like how much money you made in profit, it just got erased. And then you got Trump bragging about how he's bringing in 100 billion, in tariff revenue. It's like, cool. Well, now it just means that American businesses lost, their profits, and U.S. government, is bringing in record numbers by taxing American businesses. So yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow.
I mean, you have to acknowledge that you didn't vote for Trump, and the people who voted for him, they're like out in the woods. They're like loggers and factory workers and lumberjacks and truckers, and they're not getting hit by this at all.
Totally.
So,
yep.
I mean, he did a good job. I'll call him when I see him. He did a good job of putting the tariffs where they're not going to affect, by and large, the people who supported him.
Yeah, it's probably a good note.
I want to say they're mostly fucking truckers that voted for Trump. I mean, half the country voted for him, and they ain't all truckers.
Yeah,
well, he's saying like the populace is not going to be affected by tariffs yet. And it's going to take a little bit of time. To your point, Caleb, like the initial wave of impact is going to be business owners and entrepreneurs. And yeah, it's like one business employs 20 to 50 to 5,000 people. Yeah, you're going to hit the business, CPA and the CFO and the CEO, and like maybe some of the shareholders are going to be affected, but they're not going to know about it for 3 to 6 months. But yeah, like, Uncle Joe in Missouri, he's not feeling it. His gas prices are still low, and it hasn't really hit his supply chain yet, the stuff that he goes in and buys.
Yeah.
But by next year, and maybe even as early as late Q3, Q4, you're going to start to see your products at Walmart tick up by, 5 to 10%, and groceries and things like that are imported products that you bring in, especially anything that's coming in from Canada, is going to start being affected. Fruits and vegetables coming in from Mexico are going to start being affected. So these are just, it's very incremental. And when you talk about inflation, it's so interesting because the first place that you noticed that it hit everybody was this is the funniest piece. So the first place that inflation hit in the United States was home and car prices. But everyone kind of celebrated that because they're like, dang, my home value went up. This is awesome. Now I like made more money. I should sell my house because it's worth more. People were selling cars for increased amount of money because it was like, oh shit, I should sell this car right now. If someone's willing to pay me 13 grand, this thing's only worth 8. Like, I'm dumping that thing, that's inflation. But you kind of celebrate it when it's an asset that you hold, and you're kind of like, wow, fuck, this is pretty cool. It just went up in value, and you can cash it out. Now, little do you know, it also means that the dollar got devalued simultaneously. That's where the inflation came from. But sure, you have more cash in your bank account. But the second wave that it hit, and this is where it hurt American consumers in particular, was when interest rates started going up 0.25% every month for like a year and a half. And all of a sudden, the loan that you don't even look at the statement on, went from 4% to 9%. And all of a sudden, your minimum payment went from $200 to $480. And you're like, oh shit, I got to pay an extra $280 on this bill. Well, it's just $200, whatever. But every single one of your bills goes up by that 5 or 6 bills, whether it be, it could be even your house payment went up if you had a variable interest loan. And all of a sudden that $2,000 or $2,500 in discretionary cash, that was like what you take your kids to Disneyland on, what you go buy clothes with, just kind of like having, go out to dinner with your wife or girlfriend. All of a sudden you don't have that money anymore. You're like, fuck, why am I broke? It's just crazy. And because everything was on an auto pay, but like my income didn't go up, but like everything else went up. And now I literally at the end of the month pay all my bills and I have like $200 in the bank. That happened to pretty much every like middle class American who was making, let's say under 200 grand. Like, and it affected even, you could say, high earners of the low end of the middle class because, they had all those bills went up like that. And especially people borrow or spend a lot of money on credit cards. Anybody who has student debt got absolutely rocked. I have friends that literally their payments went up by 100%, went from 400 to 800 or 600 to 1200. Like that's devastating, those numbers. So Yeah, I mean that's how inflation is like a slow killer. And now that we've been in this cycle now for, I mean, COVID was almost 5 years ago now. We've been in this cycle for a half freaking decade, which is really kind of wild to think about. And people are broker than ever. Josh and I have been buying a lot of real estate recently, and like looking at the numbers. Almost, I would say this is like a crazy thing. I actually just realized this last night. I would say 80 to 90% of the homes for sale right now have a revolving credit line on them, or reverse mortgage. Meaning they, like, I'm talking 80 to 90% of the homes that I'm coming across. That doesn't mean 80, 90% of the homes for sale in America, but 80, 90% of the homes that I'm coming across have a second mortgage that was taken out in the last pretty much 2024 or 2025. They've taken out a second mortgage, and it could be, or refied, but they've been refining. Here's the crazy thing: refining like a 2.9 or 3.6% interest rate at like 6.75, 7.25, 7.5%. So they're refinancing their homes at double the interest rate just because they're out of cash. And so they're taking the equity out in debt, increasing their minimum payment that they had refinanced, back in 20, or bought the house in 2021, 2022 at like a low 2 or 3% interest rate, doubling the interest rate, pulling out, anywhere between 15 and 150 plus $1,000 in cash and living on that money. That's crazy. Cause like if they do, and now the house is for sale, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to sell it right now and get out. But what's going to happen with the first chunk of that cash is going to pay off your debt. So you basically just sold your equity to live off it. That means a lot of people are living off their equity of their home over the last couple of years. So
Here's the
that
question.
is wild.
And the prices of houses aren't going up, so
they're going down right now,
down.
incrementally at least. But yeah, they're generally going down except for some hot market.
Here's a question. I don't know the answer to it, but I think it's an interesting question. So let's suppose that you were the Fed, the government, everybody. You're the king, and there's X amount of money in circulation now, and inflation has become a problem. So you impose a tariff on all imported goods, and all the money that you take in from the tariff, you just burn that money. So it's taken out of circulation. Will that cause inflation or deflation or nothing? And I don't know the answer to that question, but it's a good.
So you're saying, but let me make sure I understand it, because that obviously the taxes, on the tariff tax, let's just call it what it is, that goes into the U.S. coffers, but does not go into the Fed balance sheet.
Right.
A different thing.
No, I'm.
But you're saying if the U.S. government was to burn the cash that it's receiving on tariffs, so taking it out of circulation, would that be a deflationary? You're just saying, would that be like a goodwill deflationary strategy?
Yeah, if you simplified it all down, you said, okay, pretend there's no central bank. You're the king. You're going to just take in this tariff money and burn it.
Yeah, which would be like 80
deflationary, or
and I forget what the number is, but it's like somewhere, I can't remember what I read, but it was something like, I can't remember if we brought in 80 billion in a month or if we had brought in 80 billion in total, or I think it's maybe up to 100 now, but I don't know if that was like 100 billion in a month or if that was like 100 billion over the last 2 months or something like that. But it's like a number. But I guess your question is, let's just say the number was 100 billion in the last 3 months, like in the last quarter. Would it make a meaningful impact on the economy if the U.S. government was to burn $100 billion a quarter? My guess is it probably wouldn't make much of an impact.
It depends where the money comes from, because there's money, like there's massive amounts of money. There's like retirement funds that are worth
trillion.
And that money, it doesn't matter if that money is there or not. That doesn't contribute to inflation. Money that contributes to inflation is money that if you give everybody a stimulus check for $1,000, that contributes to inflation 100%, because everybody takes that $1,000 right down to the corner store and they buy out all the stuff, and all the stuff goes right up in value immediately. So that has a very direct impact on inflation. So, this is the question. If you're tariffing, it is getting very close to the actual stuff. It's close to the inflation.
Yeah,
but
so it goes the other way.
It looks like kind of a weird perpetual motion machine. On the one hand, it should cause inflation because it causes the price to go up. But on the other hand, it should cause deflation because it just took more money out of circulation that wasn't there to spend on things. So
Yeah. I
that's
just
why
don't know if it's a big enough number. I guess my point is, like, I think at scale it's a significant thing. I just don't know if it's a big enough number, because we know, and you study this stuff, Caleb, like you're constantly looking at how the Fed, you like almost every month look at the Fed balance sheet and you can see what they're doing, and there's some covert QE that they've been doing even over the last couple months. We saw that whether they're buying or selling treasuries, like these are certain strategies that they manipulate in not in a negative way, but they modulate their balance sheet, and it has a macro and micro effects into the marketplace. I just don't know if, but we're talking about like massive numbers. I don't know if 30 billion, 50 billion, I don't know if those numbers are big enough to like really move the market. When we know that, like, we're talking about hundreds of
so is your
trillions, hundreds of trillions of dollars in these big markets.
Is your answer inflationary or net neutral?
What I would say is it's deflationary if they were to do it, which they wouldn't.
Yeah.
But let's say if they did burn 100 billion a quarter, it would be a deflationary attempt. I just don't know if it would actually make an impact, because it's like dropping a tiny little pebble in a lake. I just it's not going to send a wave to the other shore on the other side. It's,
I think that if they did that and dump staked it into the packet liquidity pool, that would have a positive effect for sure.
There's nobody who's listening to this conversation that would disagree that is the best thing that someone could do, is to take 100 billion and dump stake it into the liquidity pool.
And then burn the LP.
And then burn it.
Burn the liquidity pool tokens.
Game on. We need to get to Mar-a-Lago, and we need to say, Trump, here's what we're looking at. Here's what we're looking at. We want you to take, all we're asking is for 30 days of tariff cash and just dump stake, and we're good. We're homies. It's good to go. I'll take back everything bad I ever said, and
I might even vote for you to get another 4 years in office, dude.
I might even vote for your third term. And
I was thinking about Jerome Powell, about whether he's going to cut rates. If we've got inflation right now, I don't think he's going to cut the rate. What he's going to sit and he's going to serve out his term, and he's going to be remembered as a guy that did okay under the circumstances.
Then
the funny thing is Trump hired the guy.
Trump's going to have to bring in somebody else under the mandate of, okay, I'm bringing you in. Your job is to print money, and Jerome Powell is going to go off into the history books as a guy who did okay under the circumstances.
Without a doubt. Look, I actually read an article, so I'm as educated as you can get on what they're trying to do. So at this point, Trump reads like a book. Like, it's just, we've seen enough of them at this point that you can just kind of read them like a book. You can see when he's projecting. You can see when he's setting things up with the way he communicates in his Truth Social posts. He obviously wants inflation to come down 3%. He said that straight up, and at least 1%, right? But that's what he wants. Even while inflation's ticking up because of his tariffs, he wants lending to get cheaper, and he doesn't really give a crap about the long-term effects on the U.S. market, because he ain't going to be around for very much longer. In terms of his longevity as a human being, most likely won't make it to 100. So he'd love to just get as rich as possible in the time that he's here. Makes sense. The problem is that Jerome Powell sits between him and the lever to lower the rates. And the caveat is the Supreme Court just ruled that Trump is not allowed, even though, while they just gave him, the ability to terminate congressionally appointed government agency stewards, specifically in Department of Education and thereafter. They specifically said he can't fire the Fed chair. That said, the one caveat is that he can be terminated for cause. So what's Trump trying to do right now? He's trying to terminate him for cause. How do you do that? Well, there's a committee that reviews the Fed.
Harassment allegations.
No. What they're going after right now is there's a committee that reviews the Fed spending, and Trump just appointed several people onto that committee. So that was his first thing. So now those people are going to start railing on Jerome Powell for what? Well, they're in 2017 or 2018, they approved I think it was like a $600 or $700 million, or no, it was a $1.8 billion renovation to the Fed buildings, these multiple buildings that where the Fed's at. Now, of course, the money that's being used is the Fed's money. It's not the U.S. government's money. It's not the U.S. taxpayers' money. But what they're trying to say is that the price of this renovation has skyrocketed. It's like 600 million or 700 million over budget, because when they priced this thing out in 2017, the cost of labor has gone up. The cost of materials has gone up dramatically. And when you're spending $1 billion on something, those effects, a 30% hit, 20% hit, bang, that's a couple $100 million bucks. So the spending on this initiative has gone up dramatically. The other thing that's happened is that they've had to go subterranean in some of the renos, which is, as anybody who's in construction knows, incredibly expensive. It was unexpected. And long story short, they're over budget by like 600 mil. So what they're trying to say is that he was like being decadent, and they use the word ostentatious as they talked about his renovation, and he's out of control spending money renovating these buildings. Like, it's just, runaway freight train, and is trying to paint this story that Jerome Powell is out of control. They put him in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago and grilled him on it. Problem was that so check this out. They found the plans from 2021 when the plan was like actually greenlit, and there were some terraces. Turns out it was they called it a rooftop terrace. It was actually a like what they call like a green roof, where you use vegetation to do gray water draining and stuff like that. But they're like, oh, they're creating these like rooftop terraces where people are going to hang out. It's just, anyways, they're trying to paint this picture that he's like just out of control spending. In 2023, they revised the plans, actually cut costs dramatically. And now they're going after him for cutting costs without getting approval from the committee. So they're saying you're out of control. Anyways, they're just trying to find anything that will catch and stick to try and see if they can oust him for cause. We'll see if
similar to Trump's wall, and that Mexico is going to pay for it.
This sounds a lot like what the Democrats did to Trump in the past 3 years. It was like, and then he misfiled his taxes, and then he told a bank something, and then the banker comes in and says, no, we were happy with it, and he repaid. But he told a lie, and it's like, nobody cares, bro.
Yeah,
let it go. And now Trump's on the other side of this, and he's like, nobody's going to care about Jerome Powell either. I think that if Trump wants to get rid of Jerome Powell, he should just tell him, hey, you need to leave, and then Jerome Powell will retire, because if he doesn't, then Trump can just put like pressure on his companies, his family, his connections,
He's
whatever.
already doing that. He's already
There's
doing
all
that.
these ways that he can make him leave. So if Trump wants Jerome out, my opinion is that he can't really stay against the will of the president. You know what? He's not going to outlast Trump in office. You know,
No,
it's like,
he's only in for.
so
He's not even in for another 9 months. I mean,
there's
it's
no, yeah, he should just, if Trump wants him out, he should just retire. He gets to go off into the sunset, have a great story as a guy who did okay under the circumstances. Trump can put his go print money guy in charge, and that guy can print money and have a terrible reputation.
yeah, and Josh's bear market is just not going to happen anytime soon. I guess that comes back full circle here because eventually Trump's going to get a go print money guy, a little yes man henchman is going to come in and lower the rates. And I think that's why people are just piling into cryptos right now because they're like writings on the wall, whether it's this month or next month or 6 months from now. But Bitcoin ain't going to get any cheaper. And regardless, and we haven't talked about Michael Saylor, but he's up over 601,000 Bitcoins. Sorry, 601. Yeah, 601,000 Bitcoins. It's, depending what happens, I don't know. Any investors out there, probably take a look at MSTR stock right now because it just broke $450. It's up like, I think, over 100% off the bottom, but that's going to be a runaway freight train because price of Bitcoin, even if it drops incrementally 20% drop, it's still his average price, I think, on his Bitcoin is like under 70,000, if I'm not mistaken. So it's his buying of Bitcoin is continuing to leverage his his stock is going to continue for the foreseeable future here.
What's the point of MSTR when there's just ETFs?
You mean it as it being a proxy trade into the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah, because what else does that company do? I know they do something, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do something, and I don't know what it is either. They do like Bitcoin related products. They have like SaaS products, I think, or for like I really don't even know. Like I'm kind of bullshitting my way through this.
No, it's kind of like an Oracle type thing. It has various different software and cloud-based service technologies that they license out. I don't know what their kind of business intelligence.
Ethereum just continuously climbing right here.
Like I said, we're gonna run, and I showed you that number. There's a very good shot that this run could over the next day or so top out at about 35. So there's a real world where this thing just rips right up to 35.80-ish. It could overextend it, but that'll be your resistance level for sure. So
yeah.
And there's other resistance. That's a huge level. That's a huge level. If we look at some other levels, I can actually tell you here. I can tell you exactly. People want to know what the trade is. Let's see what we got here. I mean, look, we're on the daily, we're on a daily 9 candle. So I mean, this rip that's going to happen today, you're going to see it step back later on today or tomorrow. But the short-term target is 33.9. So you got another 100 till it'll tap this level right here for sure. Can mark my words on that one. I'm pretty confident on it. We already broke the heavy resistance at 31.7, and this next big resistant level is like 33.6, and then 34-ish. So we're going up, boys. We're going up, and I'm sure Packet's having a day.
Yeah,
we didn't spend a hot minute talking about Packet today, outside of just begging for the U.S. government to start investing into the Packet treasury. But here's what I can say is that we're just shy. We're 5 weeks away from the third airdrop. Third airdrop is going to open. It was pre-programmed into the code. And then there's just been some insane cool stuff happening on the Packet TV front. Some really exciting things. Again, we've had to be super coy with them because we're not going to talk about things until they're actually like happening. But the conversations that we're having right now are presenting a tremendous trajectory for this, eventual launch and some good metamorphosis. I mean, obviously, the work that we've been doing, creating both original channels and working on the actual technology platform, like the app itself and what that will look like upon launch, has been iterative. Plus, there's a bunch of technology that goes into that, some AI technology, and in particular that we've been beginning to develop as well. So there's just a lot happening there, but it's like nothing that anybody can use or touch quite yet. We are looking at potentially making, and we have a call later today with a major celebrity, talking about like an A-list celebrity, real A-list, not some like bullshit. Hey, this guy was like pretty great back in the 80s. Real A-list celebrity that we're working on a channel with, and that would probably be our first announcement under the banner of Packet TV, making this channel with this A-list celebrity actor. I can say that, give you a little hint. But actor, producer extraordinaire, just multifaceted player. Also someone who's, I can say, has been in just countless major brand national commercial spots, is just very well known. Everyone knows him around the world. And so that's actually super exciting. We're, very much looking forward to using that kind of as a beacon for what Packet TV can become. And then kind of a catalyst for what I could say is basically some of the fundraising and initiatives that we need to do to launch Packet TV. So a lot of that's just in the works right now. But nevertheless, this is like a never say die project. And while we're also very, we'll always be bullish on the coin, we haven't been able to put the emphasis into marketing and, everything that needs to happen there for you to see the future of what's possible here. But if somebody was to come in and even just put a small 6-figure amount of liquidity into this project, the price is going to absolutely fly. And it's definitely the intent, I think, that once the Packet TV really begins to emerge as what it is going to be, we'll see a lot of that happen. So is a very bright future for the project, and couldn't be more excited about what's coming next. But nevertheless, we'll pop on here every single Wednesday, chop it up, talk crypto, talk Packet, talk macro and microeconomics, U.S. politics, the gamut. Check in on Caleb's kids and figuring out when they're going to begin coding, and keep it real. Anything you guys want to add here?
No, go get into the chats. We're starting to get more active in the chats, so join in the fun and go get your domain. Those domains, you can go to claim.pkt .now or .live .anything,
Live,
I think.
TV, whatever you want to do. But yeah, we never really like demoed what you built there.
Claim.pkt.net. That's it.
Oh, got it. Use the net one, which is cool. Claim.pkt.net.
Yeah. Get up in there. Claim.pkt.net.
Yeah, I haven't been to that site in a while.
That thing's live. You can go get your
it's great.
Yeah, go get it while it's hot. And just get involved. Go get your Packet node live and start earning, and let's go, baby. A lot more to come. Thanks all for tuning in.
Have a good one, guys.
All right. Take care.
All right.